The water hits her face in slow motion. Cold. Deliberate. Humiliating. The mother-in-law's hand is still tilted. The glass empty. The mistress covers her mouth, but her eyes are smiling. The husband doesn't even flinch. He laughs. Not loud. Just enough. The room goes silent. She doesn't wipe her face. She doesn't cry. She just stands. Slowly. And says one sentence. I hope you never speak to me this way again. Then she walks out. What none of them knew, sitting in that dining room, mocking her, celebrating her exit from their lives, was that this woman signed their paychecks. Every single one of them. And by morning, they would know. But to understand how everything collapsed in one night, we need to go back. Back to when she was just a girl who loved a boy. Before the money. Before the power. Before the silence became her greatest weapon. Before we continue, if you've ever felt invisible in your own life, underestimated by people who should have valued you, hit that like button right now and subscribe. Because this story is about what happens when quiet people finally speak. And trust me, you need to see how this ends. She met him in college. He was charming. Ambitious. The kind of man who talked about his future like it was already written. She was quieter. Private. The kind of woman people underestimated because she didn't need to prove anything. They fell in love the way people do when they're young and broke. Shared meals. Late nights studying in the library. Dreams bigger than their wallets. He'd talk about the life he wanted to build, and she'd listen, really listen, the way you do when you believe in someone. He wanted to be someone. She already was. But she never told him that. Her family had money. Old money. The kind that doesn't show up in flashy cars or designer clothes. It shows up in board meetings. In silent ownership. In decisions made behind closed doors. But she hated that world. Hated the fakeness. The politics. The way people treated you differently the moment they knew your last name. So she left it. Lived modestly. Worked a normal job. Wore regular clothes. Drove a regular car. And when she married him, she kept it that way. She wanted to be loved for who she was. Not what she had. Not what she could give. Just her. And for a while, it worked. It really did. Those first few years were beautiful. They lived in a small apartment. Cooked dinner together. Fell asleep watching movies on a couch they'd bought secondhand. He'd come home excited about his day, and she'd listen, genuinely happy for every small win. She helped him get his first real job. Made a call. Pulled a string. Got him into a company where she had, let's just say, influence. She recommended his mother for a position in HR. His younger brother for sales. His sister for marketing. They all got in. They all thrived. They all thought they earned it on their own merit. And none of them knew why doors kept opening. He thought it was his talent. His charisma. His work ethic. His mother thought it was her years of experience finally being recognized. The siblings thought it was luck. Good timing. Being in the right place. She never corrected them. Because she had money, yes. But what she wanted more than anything was respect. Real respect. The kind you can't buy. The kind you earn by being seen for who you are, not what you have. And that quiet choice, that decision to stay invisible, to let them believe in their own success, became the very reason they eventually underestimated her. At first, the disrespect was small. A comment here. A joke there. His mother would say things at family dinners. You married below you, darling. But love is love, I suppose. We can't all marry into money. She'd smile. Nod. Say nothing. Pour more wine. Pass the bread. His siblings would talk about their own success, their promotions, their achievements, never once acknowledging the woman who opened the door. They'd compare her to other women at the company. Richer women. Women who wore designer labels and drove luxury cars. Women who understood the lifestyle. She'd clear the plates. Bring out dessert. And stay silent. Because she knew something they didn't. Silence isn't weakness. It's observation. And she was watching everything. Every slight. Every dismissal. Every moment they forgot she was even in the room. She told herself it didn't matter. That she was above it. That their opinions didn't define her. But it did matter. It hurt. Every single time. And the worst part? He never defended her. Not once. When his mother made a cutting remark, he'd laugh it off. When his siblings ignored her contributions, he'd join their conversation like she wasn't even there. When they talked about successful women in front of her, he'd nod along. She'd go home after those dinners and cry in the bathroom. Quietly. So he wouldn't hear. Because she didn't want to be the nagging wife. The insecure woman. The burden. She wanted to be strong. So she swallowed it. Again and again and again. Then the mistress arrived. Not dramatically. Not with fireworks. Just a woman at his office. Younger. Louder. The kind of woman who made men feel like heroes just by laughing at their jokes. Her name was Michelle. She worked in his department. She was good at her job, sure, but she was better at making him feel important. She fed his ego in ways his wife never did. Because his wife didn't need to. She loved him for who he was, not who he wanted to be. She didn't need to worship him. She respected him. Believed in him. But that wasn't enough anymore. The mistress, Michelle, she worshipped the idea of him. Called him brilliant. Told him he was destined for greatness. Made him feel like the most important man in every room. And that was intoxicating. His mother encouraged it. Subtly. Expertly. The way toxic people do. Michelle is so vibrant, isn't she? She'd say. So full of life. So ambitious. I can see why everyone at the office loves her. The message was clear. His wife wasn't enough. Wasn't exciting enough. Wasn't ambitious enough. Wasn't woman enough. And slowly, he started to believe it. She noticed the change. Of course she did. You don't spend years with someone and not notice when they start pulling away. The late nights at the office. The phone calls he'd take in another room. The way he'd smile at texts he didn't share. The distance in his eyes when he looked at her. She could have confronted him. Could have demanded answers. Could have checked his phone, followed him, made a scene. But she didn't. Because somewhere deep down, she already knew. And she learned a long time ago that you can't make someone love you. You can't argue someone into staying. You can't beg someone into respecting you. So she just watched. And waited. And prepared herself for what she knew was coming. One evening, he came home and said it. No build-up. No gentle conversation. Just walked in and said, "I want a divorce." She was folding laundry. She remembers that detail. A basket of clean clothes on the bed. The smell of detergent. The sound of his voice cutting through the quiet. She didn't drop the shirt in her hands. She just kept folding. Slowly. And then she looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man she'd loved since college. The man she'd built a life with. The man she'd protected and supported and believed in. And she said, okay. He blinked. He'd expected tears. Maybe anger. Definitely resistance. Probably a fight. Maybe begging. But she gave him nothing. That's it? He asked. He actually sounded disappointed. Like he wanted the drama. Needed it to justify what he was doing. That's it, she said. And she went back to folding laundry. He stood there for a moment. Confused. Maybe even a little insulted. Then he left the room. The divorce was fast. Painfully fast. She didn't ask for alimony. Didn't take the house. Didn't fight for anything. Her lawyer kept calling, frustrated, asking if she was sure. Telling her she was entitled to so much more. I'm sure, she said. Every time. She signed the papers without reading them. Took her clothes. Her books. Her grandmother's photo. And left. His family celebrated. His mother threw a dinner party. Not a small one. A real celebration. Champagne. Expensive wine. Toasts to new beginnings and better matches. The mistress moved in 2 weeks later. Michelle. With her designer handbags and her loud laugh and her Instagram posts about finally finding real love. They thought she had nothing. They thought she'd crawl back. They thought she was broken. That she'd show up at his door, desperate and regretful. They had no idea. She moved into a smaller apartment. Not because she had to. Because she wanted to. She needed space to think. To breathe. To figure out who she was without him. For the first few weeks, she barely left her apartment. She'd sit by the window with coffee, watching the city move below her. She cried. A lot. Not because she missed him, but because she missed who she used to be before she started shrinking herself to fit into his life. But then something shifted. Slowly. Like waking up from a long sleep. She started going to the office more. The office at her family's company. The one she'd avoided for years because she didn't want to be defined by it. She started attending board meetings she'd skipped. Started reviewing contracts. Started asking questions. Started making decisions. The board was surprised. Pleased. They'd been waiting for her to step up for years. Her father had left her the majority shares when he died, but she'd been so focused on her marriage, on being a supportive wife, that she'd let others run things. Not anymore. She studied, learned, listened, and slowly, she started to understand the power she'd always had but never used. Months passed. He married Michelle in a quiet ceremony. His mother beamed in all the photos. His siblings posted congratulations. Life moved on. But she noticed something interesting. He'd stopped getting promoted. His mother's department was being restructured. His siblings were facing performance reviews they'd never had before. She hadn't done anything. Yet, she was just watching, learning, planning. And then, one night, his mother decided it was time for closure. She called the ex-wife. Left a voicemail. Friendly. Almost sweet. I know things ended badly, dear, but I think it's time we all moved forward. Why don't you come to dinner? Let's bury the hatchet. For everyone's sake. The woman listened to the message 3 times. She knew it was a trap. Knew it was one final humiliation. One last chance for them to feel superior. And she accepted. Because she was ready. She showed up in a simple dress. Black. No jewelry. No makeup. Hair tied back in a low bun. She looked small. Harmless. Forgettable. Exactly how she wanted to look. His mother opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Oh, you came. How wonderful. The house was full. His siblings. Michelle, of course, playing the role of the new wife. Laughing. Touching his arm. Marking territory. They sat down to dinner. The table was set beautifully. Expensive wine. Catered food. His mother made a toast. To family. To moving forward. To letting go of the past. The ex-wife raised her glass. Took a small sip. Said nothing. The conversation flowed around her. They talked about work. About vacations. About plans. They barely acknowledged her presence. She was a ghost at her own funeral. And she just sat there. Ate quietly. Answered questions politely when asked. Smiled when appropriate. Until his mother made a comment. Something about finally moving on and knowing your place in life, and some people are meant for different things. The table laughed. Michelle laughed the loudest. He smiled. Nodded. Said, "Mom's right. Everyone needs to know where they belong." And that's when his mother did it. She picked up the glass of water in front of her. Looked directly at the ex-wife. And without warning, without provocation, she poured it over her head. The water was cold. Shockingly cold. It soaked her hair, ran down her face, dripped onto her dress. The sound of it hitting the table was loud in the sudden silence. The room froze. Michelle's hand flew to her mouth, but her eyes were smiling. His siblings looked at each other, unsure whether to laugh. He just stared, frozen. His mother put the glass down. "Oops," she said. Not sorry. Not embarrassed. Triumphant. The ex-wife didn't move. Water dripped from her hair. Down her face. Down her neck. Onto her dress. She could feel every drop. Every eye on her. Every moment of humiliation they wanted her to feel. She stood. Slowly. Not rushed. Not panicked. Just slow and deliberate. She reached for a napkin. Wiped her face. Once. Gently. Then she looked his mother directly in the eye. And in a voice so calm it was almost a whisper, she said, "I hope you never speak to me this way again." Not a threat. Not anger. Just a statement. A fact. Then she picked up her purse. And walked out. Her shoes clicked on the hardwood floor. The door closed softly behind her. For a moment, no one spoke. Then his mother laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. Well, that was dramatic. They all laughed then. Relieved. Michelle made a joke about some people can't let go. His siblings agreed. He poured more wine. They toasted to her absence. Called her pathetic. Weak. Said she always was too sensitive. Too quiet. Too nothing. They thought the night ended with her humiliation. They thought she'd go home and cry and maybe finally disappear from their lives completely. But she didn't go home to cry. She went home, changed her clothes, dried her hair, made a cup of tea, and opened her laptop. She pulled up files, documents, contracts, board member contact information. She made 3 phone calls, each one brief, professional, clear. By midnight, the board knew. By 6 a.m., lawyers were reviewing documents. By 8 a.m., HR was preparing announcements. And by 9 a.m., they knew. The email came at 8:45. Emergency board meeting. Mandatory attendance. No exceptions. No explanation. His mother was confused. His siblings were worried. He was annoyed. Michelle told him it was probably nothing. They all showed up. Conference room. 7th floor. The one reserved for executives. The room was already full when they arrived. Board members. Department heads. Legal counsel. HR director. And then she walked in. Not from the side. Not from the back. From the head of the table. She was wearing a navy suit. Hair down. Minimal makeup. She looked different. Taller somehow. Stronger. She sat down at the head of the table. Not in a guest chair. Not on the side. At the head. His mother's face went pale. His siblings exchanged glances. He just stared, his mouth slightly open. Michelle, sitting in the corner where she'd been told to wait, looked like she wanted to disappear. The ex-wife opened a folder, pulled out documents, and began. Good morning. For those who don't know me, or for those who've forgotten, my name is Catherine Marie Ashford. I am the majority shareholder of Ashford Industries. I have been for 12 years. Since my father's death. The room was silent. She could hear someone breathing heavily. Could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Could hear her own heartbeat. She continued. Her voice calm. Professional. Not angry. Not emotional. Just factual. I've spent the last several months reviewing operations. Performance metrics. Department efficiency. Personnel files. And I've identified several areas that require immediate restructuring. She looked directly at his mother. Patricia Collins. Your position as HR director is terminated, effective immediately. Your pension has been revoked due to multiple violations of company policy that we've documented over the past 6 months. You have 1 hour to clear your desk. Security will escort you. His mother's face went from pale to red. You can't. Catherine raised one hand. This isn't personal. This is governance. She moved to his siblings. James and Sarah Collins. You're both being reassigned. James, you'll move from sales director to sales associate. Entry level. Sarah, you'll transition from marketing manager to marketing intern. Your salaries will be adjusted accordingly. You'll report to your new supervisors on Monday. James started to protest. Catherine didn't even look at him. Just continued. If you choose not to accept these new positions, we'll provide severance. 2 weeks. Non-negotiable. Then she turned to him. Her ex-husband. The man she'd loved. The man who'd laughed while his mother poured water on her face just hours before. Michael Collins. You'll remain in your current position. For now. But you'll report directly to the new department head we're bringing in. Your performance will be reviewed quarterly. Like everyone else. You'll earn your place here. Or you won't. That's up to you. He finally found his voice. Catherine, this is insane. You can't just. I can, she said. And I am. This company belongs to me. It always has. You all work for me. You've always worked for me. You just didn't know it. His mother stood up. This is revenge. Petty revenge because my son divorced you. Because you couldn't keep a man. Because. No, Catherine said. Her voice didn't rise. Didn't waver. This isn't revenge. Revenge would be firing you all without cause. Without severance. without notice. This is me doing my job. This is me finally running my company the way it should have been run all along. She stood, collected her papers, looked around the room at all the faces staring at her. Shocked, angry, afraid. I've been invisible in this company for too long. Invisible in my own marriage. Invisible at family dinners. Invisible in rooms where I owned every chair. That ends today. She walked toward the door, then stopped, turned back. Aunt Patricia, about last night. The water. I meant what I said. I hope you never speak to me that way again. Because you won't have the chance. You're not welcome in this building. You're not welcome at company events. And if you try to contact me again, I'll pursue legal action for harassment. Then she left. The click of her heels on the marble floor echoed long after she'd gone. The room erupted. His mother was crying. His siblings were yelling. HR was trying to calm everyone down. Legal was explaining their options, which were basically none. He just sat there, frozen, watching his entire life collapse. Michelle grabbed her purse and left without a word. He'd find out later that day that she'd blocked his number. His mother tried to beg. She called Catherine's assistant, sent emails, showed up at the office building. Security turned her away every time. She wrote letters, actual handwritten letters, apologizing, explaining, promising it would never happen again. Catherine never responded. Not once. Michelle left him 3 weeks later. Turns out, she wasn't interested in a man who'd lost his status, who reported to someone else, who had to work his way up like everyone else. She moved on to another executive, posted about it on Instagram. He saw it. Everyone saw it. His siblings took the entry-level positions. They needed the money. Their resumes weren't as impressive as they thought once they had to apply elsewhere. Turned out, their success had been given to them, not earned. He stayed. He had to. He had bills. A mortgage on a house that felt too big now. Car payments. He'd built a life that required a certain income, and he couldn't afford to lose it. He tried to reach out to Catherine. Sent emails. Called. Wrote letters. Long ones. Explaining. Apologizing. Saying he understood now. That he'd been blind. That he'd been influenced by his mother, by Michelle, by his own ego. That he was sorry. So sorry. That he'd made a terrible mistake. That he wanted another chance. That he still loved her. Catherine read one letter. Just one. It was 3 pages long. Handwritten. Detailed. Emotional. She read it. Put it down. And replied with a single sentence via email. You didn't lose me when you cheated. You lost me when you let them disrespect me. And that was the last time they communicated. Years later, people would ask her about it. At business conferences. At charity events. Colleagues who'd heard the story would approach her cautiously. Do you ever regret it? What you did? Was it worth it? She'd smile. That same quiet smile she'd always had. And she'd say, I didn't need revenge. I just needed them to finally see me. Because that's what it was really about. Not punishment. Not cruelty. Not even justice, really. It was about being seen. Being acknowledged. Being respected. She'd spent years making herself smaller. Quieter. Less threatening. Less everything. Because she thought that's what love required. Sacrifice. Silence. Invisibility. But love isn't supposed to make you invisible. Real love sees you. Celebrates you. Protects you. And when you realize you've been invisible to someone who should have seen you more clearly than anyone, that's when you know. It was never really love. Not the kind that matters. She built her life back. Not from scratch, because she'd always had the foundation. But she built it on her own terms. She ran her company. Made it better. More efficient. More humane. More successful. She dated eventually. Carefully. Slowly. With clear boundaries and zero tolerance for disrespect. She learned to take up space again. To speak up in meetings. To disagree when she disagreed. To say no without explaining herself. To be powerful without apologizing for it. She learned that power isn't in the noise. It's in the silence. The patience. The moment you stop explaining yourself and start deciding for yourself. She never wanted to be feared. She just wanted to be respected. And when they took that from her, when they poured water on her face and laughed, when they made her feel like nothing, she didn't scream or cry or beg. She just reminded them who she'd always been, who she'd always had the power to be. And she took back everything they'd forgotten belonged to her in the first place. The greatest revenge isn't violence or cruelty or public humiliation. The greatest revenge is becoming so completely, unapologetically yourself that the people who tried to diminish you realize exactly what they lost. And by then, it's too late. If this story hit different, if you've ever felt underestimated or invisible or disrespected by people who should have valued you, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's struggling to find their voice. Someone who thinks being quiet means being weak. It doesn't. Sometimes the quietest people are the most powerful. They're just waiting for the right moment to speak. And when they do, the whole world listens. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had a moment where you finally stood up for yourself after staying silent too long? What happened? I read every comment, and your story might inspire someone else. I'll see you in the next one. Remember, you're not invisible. You never were. Sometimes people just need to be reminded to look.